The air in the confinement cell was heavy, thick with the stench of fear, dust, and silence. The small iron-barred window allowed a weak strand of light to crawl across the cracked concrete wall, landing softly on Ashley and her sleeping son. She sat on the cold floor, back pressed against the damp wall, legs drawn close, her son curled against her chest. His tiny hand rested over her heart, the same heart that had been shattered, bruised, yet refused to stop beating. Ashley's dark skin glistened faintly with sweat. Her curly hair was messy and tangled, her eyes red but not from recent tears. She'd cried herself dry long before dawn. Now, her face carried only that blank, painful calm that comes after too much heartbreak. The cell door remained half open, guarded by two silent men dressed in black suits. They didn't speak, they barely blinked. They were used to prisoners crying, screaming, or begging for mercy. But this woman sat in perfect stillness. It made them uncomfortable. Outside the cell, in the dimly lit hallway, June stood motionless. His white shirt was untucked, sleeves rolled up, his knuckles bruised from punching the wall earlier that night. His sharp Korean features, the proud jawline, the cold eyes, the air of authority that once commanded fear, were now clouded by shame. He had spent the entire night pacing that hall, replaying her voice in his head, that trembling scream when Shed held the glass against her throat. That single moment had burned into his mind, haunting him more than the blood had spilled in his MAFIA life. Behind him, his mother stood quietly, her hands folded behind her back. Her elegant face was expressionless, but her tone was sharp when she spoke. "She's stable," she said coldly. "The doctor said she didn't cut herself. That's enough for now." June didn't answer. He didn't even turn to face her. His mother sighed impatiently and added, "You've done what you shouldn't have done. Don't make it worse by trying to fix it emotionally. She's a maid, June. Nothing more." Her words pierced him, not because they were harsh, but because deep down, he could hear his own past arrogance echoing through them. A maid. That was how he used to see Ashley too. Until that night. He turned his gaze back to the cell. Ashley hadn't moved. Her dark, calm face looked distant, but even from a few meters away, he could feel the cold wall Shed built around herself. Her son stirred in her lap, muttering in his sleep, "Mama, it's dark." Ashley stroked his hair gently, whispering, "Shush, baby. I'm here." Her voice was so soft that it cracked something inside June. For the first time, he truly understood what kind of pain had caused. Not just to her, but to the innocent child sleeping in her arms. His child. June's throat tightened. His chest felt heavy. He wanted to step into the cell, to fall on his knees and beg for forgiveness, to at least tell her that he was sorry. But he couldn't move. His mother's eyes were still on him, sharp and watchful, ready to crush any weakness she saw. "Go to your room," she said flatly. "She's not your responsibility anymore." Still, June didn't move. His voice, when it came, was barely audible. "Mother." She could have died tonight. The older woman's expression hardened. She should have known her place tonight. That was enough. June clenched his fists and turned away, refusing to let her see his eyes. He walked slowly toward the door, but before leaving, he turned for one last glance. Ashley sat in silence, staring at the small flame of a candle burning beside her. Her eyes, deep and unreadable, met his. For the first time in years, June looked powerless. And for the first time ever, Ashley looked untouchable. The roles had silently reversed. He lingered a second too long before finally walking away, his footsteps echoing through the corridor until they faded into nothing. Ashley watched him go without blinking. Then she kissed her son's forehead and whispered, "Never become like him, my love. Never." The boy stirred again and sighed softly in her arms. Outside, the morning sun began to rise, flooding the sky with pale light. But inside that small, cold cell, night still lingered. Thick, painful, and endless. The next morning came heavy and silent. The mansion was unusually still, save for the faint hum of the ceiling fans and the rhythmic footsteps of guards pacing outside. June stood at the balcony of his room, staring blankly at the city skyline. The horizon was painted gold by the rising sun, but his heart was far from light. He hadn't slept a wink, His mind kept drifting back to Ashley, to the moment her trembling hand held that glass to her throat. Her dark eyes, full of despair. Her cracked voice. The fear that flashed through him when he thought he might lose her for good. He lit a cigarette, but even the smoke tasted bitter. The guilt was suffocating. Still, a part of him whispered that maybe it wasn't too late, maybe he could try to make things right. Head ignored his mother's words last night, and now, as the sun climbed higher, he made a decision. He was going to see Ashley. The narrow corridor leading to her confinement was dim and quiet. The same two guards were there, standing still like statues. They nodded stiffly when June approached, and one of them pulled the iron door open. Inside, Ashley sat on the floor again, her back straight, her expression calm but distant. Her little boy sat beside her, playing with a small piece of string he had found on the ground. June stepped in slowly. The sound of his footsteps made her raise her head, but she didn't speak. Her eyes, dark and cold, watched him without emotion. He took a deep breath. "Ashley," he began, voice low, uncertain. There was a faint tremor in it, something between shame and hesitation. She said nothing. Only her child turned his small head toward him, curious but cautious, like he sensed the heaviness in the air. June's chest tightened. "I didn't come to hurt you," he said softly. "I just wanted to see you. And him." Ashley's lips curved slightly, but not in kindness. Her voice came calm and bitter, like ice cracking under pressure. "Now you remember we exist." June froze. Her words sliced deep, not because they were cruel, but because they were true. She shifted slightly, pulling her son closer. "Whatever you came here for, June, don't pretend it's love." Her tone was steady, controlled. "You made your choice already." Before he could respond, a faint knock sounded at the door. One of his men stepped inside, tall, muscular, dressed in black, head bowed slightly. He leaned toward June and whispered something in his ear. The color drained from June's face. His eyes widened. "What did you just say?" he asked quietly. The man whispered again, slower this time, the words almost trembling. "It's true, boss. We checked twice. One of the girls from the mansion. The one you... she's pregnant." June's chest went cold. His mind spun wildly. He turned away for a moment, rubbing his temples, trying to process the shock. Ashley, noticing the sudden shift in his expression, frowned faintly. "What is it?" she asked. But June didn't answer. The whisper from his man had detonated something inside him, not just surprise, but confusion, fear, and then a slow, burning darkness. He straightened slowly, his face returning to that cold, unreadable mask. His eyes, moments ago soft and regretful, now hardened like stone. Ashley saw it, that quick, chilling transformation, and her stomach dropped. June gave a small, forced smile. "Nothing," he said curtly. "Nothing that concerns you." He turned sharply and walked toward the door. Ashley called after him, "June!" But he didn't stop. Her voice echoed against the bare walls, but he kept walking, every step faster than the last until he was gone. Outside the door, the guard followed him silently down the corridor. When they reached the stairs, June's hand tightened around the rail. His jaw flexed. "Get me proof," he ordered coldly. "I want confirmation, everything." The man nodded and hurried off. June stood there for a moment, staring into space. The cigarette head left burning in his hand earlier had died, but the fire inside him hadn't. By the time he turned around again, the tenderness in his eyes from that morning had vanished completely. Whatever Head planned to say to Ashley, whatever part of him still cared, had died right there, replaced by the darkness that had once defined him. Inside the cell, Ashley could still feel the echo of his sudden departure. Something was wrong, she could feel it deep inside her bones. She looked down at her son, who was still quietly playing. Then she looked at the candlelight flickering in the corner again, and a whisper escaped her lips. "Lord, what's coming next?" The next few days passed in eerie silence. Ashley noticed it first, the absence of footsteps, the lack of voices outside her confinement, the untouched meals dropped at the door. It wasn't peace. It was the kind of silence that meant something dark was being planned. Even her son, usually full of small laughter and childish curiosity, had grown quiet. He could sense her unease, the way her eyes darted to the door at every faint noise, the way she barely touched her food. She prayed silently each night, whispering to the cracked wall, hoping God still listened from such places. Then, one afternoon, the door creaked open. The sound alone made her body stiffen. Her child instinctively crawled behind her. When June stepped inside, she recognized immediately that something had changed. He wasn't the man who stood before her days ago, torn by guilt and hesitation. No, this was the other June. The one she'd once seen giving orders with cold eyes and a dead heart. But this time, he wasn't alone. Behind him walked his mother, her elegant kimono-style gown brushing against the dusty floor, her sharp eyes filled with superiority and disgust. And then came her, the young woman at the center of it all. Light-skinned, delicate, barely in her 20s. Her manicured hands rested gently on her slightly swollen belly as she stepped in, shyly glancing around like she didn't belong here, which, ironically, she didn't. June walked ahead, his hands in his pockets, arrogance dripping off him. His mother followed proudly, her chin raised high. The young woman stayed close, clutching June's arm like a trophy. Ashley froze. Her eyes darted from June to the woman, to the belly she was touching so possessively. Her stomach turned. A lump formed in her throat. She didn't speak, not because she was weak, but because there were no words for the betrayal she was witnessing. June smiled coldly. "What's the matter, Ashley?" he said mockingly. "You're quiet. Aren't you going to congratulate me?" She blinked slowly, unable to process his tone. "Congratulations," he continued, pacing in front of her like a man showing off a victory. "She's carrying my heir. Finally. After all the nonsense, it turns out the universe is on my side." He laughed, bitter and cruel. His mother clapped lightly, clearly enjoying every second of Ashley's humiliation. "I told you, son," she said, her Korean accent slicing through the tension like glass. "The universe rewards the patient. Not women like her." She turned toward Ashley with a sneer. "Look at you. You were lucky enough to even step foot in our house, and you thought you could keep him?" Ashley kept her eyes down. She didn't want to give them the satisfaction of seeing her tears. But her son, confused and frightened, peeked from behind her. His small voice trembled. "Mommy, who are they?" June's mother chuckled. "That poor child doesn't even know his place. Pathetic." Ashley's fists clenched. Her breathing quickened. Still, she said nothing. June bent down, his face inches from hers. His once soft gaze now burned with mockery. "You see this?" he said, pointing to the other woman. "This is what a real woman looks like. A woman who can carry my bloodline without threats or drama." His words cut like knives. The other woman gave a small, nervous smile and rested her head on June's shoulder, clearly uncomfortable but too weak to resist his display. June's mother smirked. "She's young, beautiful, and obedient," she added, eyes narrowing at Ashley. "Everything you're not." Then June laughed again, a cruel, empty laugh that echoed off the cold walls. "Maybe this is your cue to be grateful," he said. "You should thank me, Ashley. I'm still letting you breathe." Ashley finally lifted her head. Her eyes met his, fierce, wet, but steady. "Breathe?" she repeated softly, almost whispering. Her voice trembled, but it carried power. "I was breathing long before I met you, June. And I'll still be breathing when your lies destroy you." The room went silent. June's smile faltered for a second. His mother's eyes narrowed in disgust. Then the silence broke with a sharp slap, the older woman's hand connecting harshly with Ashley's cheek. Ashley didn't flinch. Her child screamed and clung to her arm, crying. The other woman, the pregnant one, turned away, clearly disturbed, but no one cared. June's mother hissed, "Insolent trash," then turned to her son, motioning toward the door. "Let's go. We've wasted enough time here." June gave Ashley one last look, cold, lifeless, triumphant, and walked out, arm in arm with the woman carrying his supposed child. As the door slammed shut behind them, Ashley sank slowly to the floor. Her child cried quietly against her chest. Tears rolled down her cheek, but her expression stayed still. Because deep down, she knew something they didn't. Something time would reveal. The silence returned, heavier than ever. And for the first time in weeks, Ashley smiled. A small, broken smile that said one thing clearly. It's not over. The mansion had never looked this alive before. Every chandelier was blazing with light. The marble floors shone like glass, polished by dozens of servants who worked all night. Laughter filled every corner. Glasses clinked. Music blared. Outside, a banner stretched across the grand entrance in bold golden letters. Welcome home, the heir of the Kang dynasty. From a distance, it looked like a fairy tale. But under the surface, it was all rot and hypocrisy. Inside, June stood at the center of it all, tailored black tuxedo, his hair slicked back perfectly, eyes burning with pride. He looked like a man who had everything. And for the first time in years, he felt invincible again. The room was filled with powerful men, politicians, businessmen, and fellow mafias who once doubted him. Now, they surrounded him with smiles, backslaps, and congratulations. One of them raised a glass. To June Kang, the man who defied fate. The crowd cheered. The orchestra swelled. And June smiled wide, a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. At the far end of the property, beneath all the glitter and celebration, a dimly lit cell still smelled of dust and forgotten air. That was where Ashley and her boy had spent the last stretch of their captivity. It was the same small room where she had begged to see daylight. The same room where her son cried himself to sleep each night. The same room where she had watched the shadow of June's betrayal sink in fully. But that morning, something was different. The noise above had changed, not the usual silence, but the thumping of footsteps, the faint echo of music, the scent of fresh flowers and wine. Her son stirred awake, rubbing his sleepy eyes. "Mommy, what's that sound?" Ashley looked toward the ceiling. Her lips tightened. "They are celebrating," she said simply. "Celebrating what?" he asked innocently. Her voice faltered. "Something that doesn't belong to them." She stood up, her thin nightgown brushing against her legs, and looked at her reflection in the cracked mirror nailed to the wall. Her once glowing dark skin now looked tired and dull from the months in confinement. Her hair was rough, her eyes red, but inside those eyes burned quiet fire. By mid-afternoon, the door opened. 2 guards walked in, clean uniforms, emotionless faces. One threw a small bag on the floor. "Pack your things," he said shortly. Ashley frowned. "What do you mean?" The other guard didn't even look at her. "You're leaving. Mistress orders." Her son's head snapped up. "We're going home?" Ashley paused. For a second, her heart raced. Home. That word had become foreign. The guard shrugged. "Wherever you came from, lady. You're not welcome here anymore." The word stung, but Ashley didn't cry. She quietly helped her son put on his worn shoes, picked up the small bag, and stood up tall. As they walked down the long corridor, she noticed the difference, the usual cold silence replaced by the thundering echoes of a party. When she reached the upper floor, she saw it all. Dozens of people in elegant suits and dresses. Waiters carrying silver trays. Balloons. Flashing cameras. And there, at the heart of it, was June. Laughing. Holding the hand of a young woman in a pale gold gown, her face glowing under the lights. In her arms was a baby wrapped in silk, the supposed heir of the Kang Empire. Ashley froze. Her son clutched her arm, hiding behind her. For a long moment, she just stared. June looked like everything she once believed he could be. Handsome, powerful, charismatic. But all she could see was a man who had traded truth for pride. June's mother was beside him, smiling wide, greeting guests and talking about fate and blessings. Her voice carried through the hall like poison. "After all those years of trials, my son is finally blessed. The Kang bloodline continues." People applauded. Cameras flashed. Ashley's heart cracked quietly. She took a step back, but her movement caught the older woman's eyes. Their gazes locked. For a heartbeat, silence drowned out the music. The older woman's smile faltered slightly, then returned, colder this time. She whispered something to June, who turned his head. His eyes met Ashley's. They didn't flinch. He looked at her for only a second, then looked away, pretending she didn't exist. That one gesture hurt more than the humiliation. He had erased her completely. Ashley tightened her hold on her son's hand and continued walking toward the exit. The guards didn't stop her. No one spoke to her. It was as if she was invisible in the same place where her pain had once mattered. Outside, the air felt fresher, the scent of the city, of life. Her son smiled, breathing deeply. "Mommy, it smells good out here." Ashley forced a smile. "Yes, baby, it does." Her eyes lifted toward the mansion one last time. She saw fireworks going off, music blaring, people laughing, all for a lie. She shook her head slowly and whispered to herself, "Laugh while you can." Back inside, the party raged on. June held his glass high, making a toast to family, legacy, and blessings. His mother stood proudly beside him, beaming like royalty. The woman beside him, the supposed mother of his child, smiled nervously, eyes darting around, as if hiding something. But no one noticed. No one cared. In that moment, June was untouchable. He bent down, kissed the baby's forehead, and raised the child for the cameras. Flashes exploded. Guests clapped. The music grew louder. For June, it was victory. For his mother, it was redemption. For the young woman, it was survival. But for Ashley, miles away, walking barefoot through the slum streets under a darkening sky, it was the day she was reborn. Because while they celebrated lies, she carried truth. And truth, unlike power, never dies. The sun rose slowly that morning, golden rays brushing the glass walls of the Kang mansion. It was the day everyone had been waiting for. The day June would officially be crowned the heir of the Kang Empire. The day the Kang name would be written into the next chapter of power, wealth, and control. The hall was already filled before noon. Mafia associates, family friends, reporters, all dressed in fine suits and shimmering gowns. A huge golden banner hung across the marble wall. The next king of the Kang dynasty. June stood tall in a perfectly fitted black suit. Every movement he made was deliberate, practiced. Every smile rehearsed. His mother hovered proudly beside him, wearing an expensive traditional Korean hanbok in silver and white, her posture screaming victory. The young woman who bore his child sat quietly in the corner, her eyes lowered to the floor, her face pale. She looked nothing like the glowing woman from the celebration weeks ago. Something about her seemed hollow. The ceremony began. A senior member of the Mafia Council stepped onto the stage, holding a black envelope, the final document that would transfer the empire into June's control. He cleared his throat. "Before this ceremony concludes, we must verify and confirm the legitimacy of the heir." The hall fell silent. Even the clinking of glasses stopped. June raised a brow. "Verify?" The old man nodded. "A routine procedure, Kang June. A formal DNA verification. Every heir in the organization must be confirmed before assets are transferred. Just standard tradition." June smirked and straightened his tie. "You can go ahead." His mother smiled too, a smugness in her voice. "It's a waste of time, but rules are rules." The official opened the folder, slowly, deliberately, as if savoring the anticipation. The faint sound of paper sliding echoed through the hall. He looked at the result once. Then again. And again. The color drained from his face. The murmurs began immediately. "What's wrong? Is there a problem? Read it out loud." The man's hands trembled slightly as he adjusted his glasses. He swallowed hard, his voice barely steady. He read the words slowly, every syllable slicing through the hall like glass. The DNA test result between Kang June and the child in question indicates a 0% biological match. The microphone dropped silent. The hall froze. No sound. No breath. No heartbeat. For a few seconds, The world seemed to stop. Then, chaos erupted. June blinked. Once. Twice. His mind refused to process the words. What? What did you just say? The old man repeated, this time louder. The child is not yours, Kang June. A collective gasp spread through the hall. Some people whispered. Others hid their smiles. His mother's face went pale, every trace of arrogance melting away. That's impossible, she stammered. There must be a mistake. Do another test. But the official shook his head. The test was conducted by 2 separate laboratories. Both results are identical. The woman beside June began shaking violently. Tears filled her eyes. I didn't mean to, I thought. June turned to her sharply, his expression turning from disbelief to rage. You thought what? He hissed. The woman burst into tears, trembling uncontrollably. Please. I didn't know. I swear, I didn't know until it was too late. The hall erupted into noise. Camera flashes. Gasps. Shouts. People recording, others whispering like vultures. June's mother grabbed her chest, her breath shallow. No, this can't be happening, she whispered, staggering backward. For the first time in her life, she looked small. The same woman who once mocked Ashley for being dirty and worthless now stood humiliated in front of everyone she ever tried to impress. June's fists clenched. His face twisted in fury. He turned toward the crying woman and roared, "Who's the father?" But she couldn't answer, she just wept harder, collapsing to her knees. Security tried to pull her away, but June pushed them aside, pacing like a madman. His world, the legacy, the power, the pride, had shattered in one sentence. Every mocking laugh he once threw at Ashley now echoed in his own head, louder and louder. Her calm voice from their last encounter replayed like a curse. Laugh while you can. He finally understood. And it burned. Outside the hall, the media had already caught wind of the scandal. Phones buzzed, cameras rolled, headlines started flashing. The Kang heir, a fraud? The dynasty crumbles. Inside, chaos continued. June's mother fainted. The crying woman was dragged out, begging for forgiveness. The guests left in murmurs, whispering shame and mockery. June stood alone at the center of the chaos, motionless, speechless. He could barely breathe. His entire empire, everything he fought to prove, gone in a second. Meanwhile, miles away in the slums, Ashley sat on the wooden step outside her small house, her son beside her, fixing a broken toy car with determination. She watched him quietly, a soft smile playing on her lips. He looked up, his little face lighting up. "Mommy, look. It works again." Ashley smiled, brushing her fingers over his cheek. "Of course it does, baby. You just needed patience." The old radio nearby suddenly crackled with breaking news. Ashley's neighbor ran out, waving a newspaper. "Did you hear?" she said breathlessly. "That big MAFIA family, the Kangs, they've been disgraced. The heir's child isn't even his." Ashley looked up slowly. Her lips curved into the faintest smile. Not of joy. Not of revenge. Just quiet, peaceful closure. She whispered to herself. "I told you, June. Lies never last." She turned to her son and kissed his forehead. "Come inside, baby. It's getting cold." As she walked back into the small, dimly lit room, holding her son's hand, she didn't look back. Not once. Back in the mansion, June sat alone amid the chaos, his mother unconscious on a sofa, shattered glass on the floor. He stared blankly at the DNA paper still lying on the table, the only proof of his downfall. He whispered to himself, voice hollow, trembling. Maybe she was right all along. Tears rolled down his cheeks, not from guilt, but from the unbearable pain of losing everything he never valued. He finally understood what it meant to be powerless. Not from a medical diagnosis, but from his own choices. The empire he thought was his inheritance had become his punishment. And the only person who could forgive him had already walked away. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you'll always be the first to catch my new stories.